Hello, good vibes people. How are you doing today? Kasungumo, say hi to the guys there. Good vibes. So these ones are my bunny friends. And if it's your first time here, well, let me tell you, you shall be seeing them more often if you subscribe because you get to do with them videos every day. Now, my friend, here is what goes on around here. We react together to videos. You might ask yourself what types of videos? Well, some extremely good vibes videos that are compiled for us by some good vibes friend of mine who will see passing me fruit along the way. The fruits, my friend, are just some snacks because the videos are extremely interesting and wouldn't need you to waste even a minute to get something else. So, my friend, hit that like button and join us till the end on spreading our mission to the whole world of love, peace, honesty, and forgiveness. Myself, I'm Y311H, and it's an extreme pleasure to be joined by you today. Let me read for you, my friends, something here from some good vibes book called The Quran. Don't know much about it, but we came across something that I'd like to share with you. So listen. If you be said to them, no, not there, not there. Your Lord does create and choose as he pleases. No choice have they in the matter. Glory to Allah. And far is he above the partners they ascribe to him. And your Lord knows all that their hearts conceal and all that they reveal. And he is Allah. There is no God but he. To him be praise, at the first and at the last. For him is the command, and to him shall you all be brought back. That, my friend, is from the surah called the Narrations, from chapter 68. Myself is the second time reading it, and I don't know what it means. Please, if you understand, tell us in the comment section. But let's give thanks to our Creator before we dive in. Thank you, mercy Lord, Father, for the goodness of this day. Thank you, dear Lord, for this soul that you created, Father, and have enabled them to join us today. All glory and honor belong unto you, Father. Dear Lord, as you have united us here together, help us, Father, to spread love to the whole world. And may it reach all corners of the world, Father, for the glory and honor of your name. Forgive us all our sins and guide us through. In Jesus' mighty name, we do pray, trusting and believing. Amen. Let's dive in good vibe sauce.
In this video, I'm going to explain where crypto goes if you send it to the wrong address, to the wrong network, and why, if you send it to the wrong place, you can't get it back. I got on my whiteboard. Let's get to it. The explanation for this is actually surprisingly simple, and it illustrates really well how blockchain works. So we need to start with a quick refresher about keys. Remember that your keys are what you use to access the blockchain and access your crypto. Everybody who joins a blockchain network gets a key pair, and it looks like this. Your private key is only for you. It is used to sign transactions. You can buy, sell, send, or withdraw things. It is your real ID on chain. Sometimes it's represented by a seed phrase, like 12 or 24 words. And you should never, ever, ever reveal this encrypted key, because if you do, you break the encryption. You give people access to do all these things with the information on chain that represents your money. You also have a public key. This is much more like a mailing address that you can share with others. You might have many of these that can be generated from a single private key. Others can use these to find and send you things. And the blockchain knows that your personal private key and your public key are related. It can unencrypt the relationship between these things so that when somebody sends something here, the blockchain knows it ought to be assigned to you. Now you'll notice I use the mailbox analogy, and I find that's actually really helpful here. Your public key is like your mailing address or an email address that you can share with anybody that they can use to send you things. But your private key is like the key to a mailbox that lives at your apartment, that only you can access to take out the mail that's inside, or if you want to send a letter. Now, because of that analogy of the mail system, a lot of people think that crypto looks like this, where there is information that is transmitted from one party to another. But that's not how crypto works at all, because the money, the information, it doesn't physically exist. Crypto actually looks like this, okay? Senders transmit information to a blockchain using their private key. And the blockchain works like a storage locker where you've set something in there and then somebody else has to log in to pick it up. Because the critical thing to remember here that is often confused with language is that the money, your crypto, it doesn't physically exist. It's not actually going anywhere. It lives on a ledger. These pieces of paper represent the ledger. These are the transactions. That's all cryptocurrency is. It is a record. And as we buy, sell, or send, more pages get added to this record. We call them blocks. And they are linked together, chained together. That's why we call this a blockchain. It is just a record of transactions. We're not actually sending somebody money. We're not actually holding money in our wallets. Our wallets secure our keys, our encrypted keys, pieces of encrypted information. That's all they are. And so, because that's all they are and that's all the blockchain is, it's a retrieval system. This is what happens when you send information to the wrong address. Your private key has created a transaction represented by an arrow like this that specifies who you are, what the information in transit is, like say 1 Bitcoin, and it specifies who is allowed to pick that up, who is entitled to receive, spend, transfer this Bitcoin that you have sent to the blockchain. That is one of these people right here. The blockchain is holding a record of that Bitcoin so that in the future, only the person specified in this transaction can spend it. Now remember, they're not picking up the money. It's not going to their wallet. They're not physically moving it. We are just telling this piece of computer code who is authorized to move that data in the future. Okay? Let's unpack that. If in my transaction, I specify an address which does not exist, that will be written on the blockchain. And no matter how many people try and get in, how many private keys try and unlock this lock, only the key that I have specified in my transaction will be able to have the authority to move that information, to do anything with it in the future. And the same thing is true if I send this information to the wrong network. The blockchain puts that on the record so that only the wrong network or the wrong address can ever access that information to move it again. So to summarize, when you send crypto to the wrong network or to the wrong address, you are not actually sending a physical package to a physical destination or a digital destination like somebody's email. What you are doing is you are telling a piece of computer code that you are authorizing it to release information to someone or somewhere that it doesn't have a record of, a place it cannot send the money because it has no output for the input you have given it. And because the record on a blockchain is mostly immutable, once it's there, it cannot be undone. It cannot be reversed. You cannot get that money back, and no one can ever retrieve it. I know that was a long explanation, and we had to unpack a few different concepts to get there, but I hope it helped you understand a little more about how blockchain works, why it's so secure, and the ways that people still have room to improve it. If you've got more questions, let me know in the comments.
I can't make this shit up. My daughter's 2, okay? If she ever goes to prison one day, good luck to the guards. So she has a sleeping tent. That's what this is, because she's an escape artist and would climb out of her bed and get into stuff, and it's really unsafe. So we got her a tent. She opens the tent from the inside. She'll slide the zipper down. And so we put these clips on the zippers that hold the zippers in place on both sides. None of the zippers are open. And I was like, aha, finally, like we should be good. No, she just came out of the bedroom. And I'm like, how did you do that? Did you just tear the netting? No, she undid this and then put it back. She clipped them back together. I am extremely impressed and also extremely frightened.
You see this picture? Do you notice anything in the forest? Let me highlight it for you. Do you notice it now? Kinda hard. It's pretty small. Let me enhance that and make it bigger so we can take a closer look. Do you see it now? Right about there? Let me highlight this one for you. Look inside the circle. What is that? Those are like two faces, but not human faces. Now I've got even a better view of that. But the closer you look, the more freaky it gets. Can you see that? What the heck is it? Right there in the circle. There's more than one thing. There's two things. Is that a Sasquatch? Is that a Bigfoot? Is that some weirdo? I don't know, but there's something there in the forest taking a peek. So what do you think that those two creatures, beings, whatever, might be? 'Cause if you ask me, whatever these are, they're freaky, baby. They're freaky. Let me know your opinion in the comment section, Booshkies. Shabadoo!
A power move is often a lot more effective when it's done quietly and in the shadows. A discreet, measured move faces a lot less resistance because people don't push back against something that they haven't immediately noticed or initially understood the gravity of. The hidden gap also offers the flexibility to adapt or backtrack if needed.
If you love bread but it causes bloating, gas and pain, then this might help. You might be in a percentage of the population that has something known as non-celiac gluten sensitivity. Basically, you get gut symptoms like abdominal pain, bloating and diarrhea when you eat gluten. Or you have IBS and certain types of food which are high in FODMAPs like specific types of bread also trigger symptoms. The beauty of sourdough bread is that during the fermentation process, the combination of lactic acid bacteria and wild yeast make it lower in gluten than other types of bread. The fermentation process also breaks down FODMAPs like fructans found in wheat. This pre-digestion means there are fewer fermentable carbohydrates in the final product, and this can help reduce gas and bloating in people sensitive to FODMAPs. Other good low fructan and low gluten options include spelt bread and sprouted bread, also known as Ezekiel bread. And all these types of bread have plenty of prebiotic fibers, which means you still get that benefit for your microbiome and potentially fewer symptoms.
Hey guys, did you guys know that the Star of Jacob, which is the star that was announcing the Messiah's birth before Jesus was born, and then it just went away, is actually back? Look it up. Star of Jacob is going to be present for like a month or two. And we're also supposedly getting a mini moon or an asteroid. The literal star that tells you or warns you of the Lord's coming back in the day is now visible, guys. Is now visible for the next 2 months. Crazy. I am beyond blown away.
You don't find it suspicious that this time, 4 years ago, during an election year, there was a list out of celebrities doing some really messed up things, and then again, this year, there's another list out of celebrities doing some really messed up things. You don't find that suspicious? What are they trying to tell you people about celebrities? And what side is it that celebrities are usually on?
Now I want y'all to pay attention to this. Look at this. Look at that. Y'all see that mini ball, but all back here you see light. Now, usually when you see something like this, you see the lens flare, y'all. I want to know, are we having more solar eclipses than we are led to believe? Because as we're looking at this video over here, we do not see the lens flare, and then it pops up out of nowhere. Watch this. Boom. Look at that. And it pops up out of nowhere. You seen him pan the camera and there was no lens flare, but now it is. But now the sun starts doing this, y'all. Check this out. Look at this. Y'all see that, right? It's big. At first it was little. Now it's big. Now it starts pulsating out of nowhere. Look at this. Hold on. Watch. Look at that. It's sending Morse code. Y'all see that? Y'all see that, right? This is in Kentucky today. Look, it's just pulsating. Look at that, y'all. What is going on here? Look at that. And then all the beautiful rainbow colors all around it, y'all. That's crazy.
This is an inflatable bottle. Any questions?
What? What was that? You guys. I got that. I got that. What was that? You guys. I got that. I got that. What? What? What was that?
An 81-year-old man in Montana committed such an unusual crime, a judge struggled to come up with a sentence for him. Arthur Jack Schubarth was cloning sheep for others to use in trophy hunting. The widespread operation began in 2013. Schubarth illegally imported parts of a Marco Polo sheep from Kyrgyzstan. The protected species is prohibited in Montana to protect native sheep from disease and hybridization. But Schubarth used the giant sheep's genetic material to make embryos. He implanted them in a female sheep on his farm and created Montana Mountain King. He then used that sheep to breed others, with the goal of creating larger, more valuable sheep for hunting, according to officials. He sold hybrid sheep to people in at least 10 states and helped someone from Minnesota inseminate 74 of their own sheep. He sold one of Montana Mountain King's offspring for $10,000. The judge has ordered that the remaining hybrid sheep with Marco Polo DNA must be sent to slaughter by the end of the year, with the meat also being donated. In the end, Schubarth's sentence is 6 months in prison and a $20,000 fine. He also has to pay $4,000 to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Foundation. And part of his plea deal is that he has to cooperate if he's asked to testify against 5 co-conspirators.
To the index of other news, a World War II bomb dropped by the U.S. and buried for 8 decades exploded this morning at an airport in southwest Japan, 80 years after the war. The 500-pound bomb causing a crater on the taxiway, 23 feet wide, 3 feet deep. More than 80 flights canceled. Authorities tonight say they still don't know what triggered the explosion.
So what's going on in Japan and why'd it hit America like a truck? I'm Vivian, your HBFF and your favorite Wall Street girlie who breaks down confusing finance topics for you. For a long time, borrowing money in Japan was cheap, like negative rates cheap, meaning banks would pay you to borrow money. This made Japan very popular for carry trades, aka investors borrow money from cheap borrowing countries to convert it and then invest in expensive borrowing countries where the returns are higher, aka America. But recently the Bank of Japan was like, ugh, the yen keeps devaluing. So BOJ Daddy raises rates. But because US Fed Daddy didn't raise rates this summer, the yen got a lot stronger versus the USD. This put carry trade investors in a pickle. Not only was the BOJ charging interest on those loans now, the yen had surged and investors were getting hit with margin calls, aka the banks calling them like, yo broke boys, prove to us you can actually pay these loans back. And these investors were like, I don't got it. So they had to sell US stock, leading to downward movement in the market, to buy yen and fulfill their margin calls. But overall, if you're a regular investor, none of this should matter to you. Just invest in a diversified portfolio over the long haul and you'll weather the ups and downs.
What exactly is a sweet potato slip? Unlike regular potatoes that you just stick in the ground and it grows more potatoes, sweet potatoes have to grow a slip first because they're actually not related to potatoes. They are related to morning glories. You'll want to start this process a few months before putting the slips in the ground. So I started this process back in January and put my slips in the ground in March. You just take a regular sweet potato from the grocery store, poke some skewers in the side, and stick it in a cup half filled with water. You just want to make sure that a good inch of the lower portion of sweet potato is submerged into the water. You then take your little sweet potato, put it on a sunny windowsill, and wait for sprouts to happen. And in a few months, this is what your sweet potato should look like. Each one of these sprouts is a slip. You then just pop your slips off, let them root in a cup of water, and put them in the ground and watch them explode. In my experience, sweet potatoes have been the most prolific thing that we've grown in our garden. They are so easy to grow, they virtually have no pest, and you get so much bang for your buck. One sweet potato will produce multiple slips, which then in turn produce multiple sweet potatoes. And what you end up with is an endless supply of delicious sweet potatoes.
One of the stranger aspects of the way we're built is that we need to go through a number of stages of development in childhood and adolescence in order to reach maturity. And if, for whatever reason, we miss out on any one of them, then a part of us will in the background be craving to return to finish the stage, even if it's one normally associated with being a toddler, and we happen to be well into middle age. The central stages of childhood might be summarized like this: the adored stage, in which, in the very early months and years, on the basis of having accomplished nothing at all, we feel deeply accepted and approved of by our caregivers, simply for being, because we've arrived on the earth, are defenceless and vulnerable, and perhaps have a very cute button nose. The irresponsible stage, in which we can explore the world in a spirit of freewheeling curiosity, without too many consequences or burdens. We can ask questions, we can try out what it's like to drop things on the floor, catapult pasta into the air, or say "bah" 100 times. The naughty stage, in which we can give free rein to our desire to provoke, to be mean, to be jealous, to be a bit unkind, and to flout the rules, while being forgiven and avoiding labels like evil or bad. A manners stage, in which we learn about the importance of being good, of making others happy, and of fitting in with the demands of those. Adolescence brings with it further stages of development. The rebellious stage, in which we can shout at our parents, declare that we never wanted to be born, question every conceivable kind of authority, and attempt to be very strange indeed. The sexually exploratory stage, in which we can give license to our burgeoning sexuality and find out who we really are and what we want in bed. The responsible stage, in which we find ourselves vocationally, submit to the demands of academia, and accede to the limitations of employment. The emotionally committed stage, in which we exchange the pleasures of sexual exploration for the complicated pleasures of a deep union. The difficulty with these stages is that they rely, in order to unfold, on a good enough facilitating environment. A rebellious stage requires parents who will put up with a degree of stroppiness and fury. An irresponsible stage requires caregivers who can allow us to make a racket and leap up and down on the sofa for an hour. This is not a given. There may be depression, anger, a sick sibling, a divorce, or some other factor that obliges us to jump to a pseudo or premature version of maturity. We can end up responsible before we've been rebellious, emotionally committed before we've been allowed to have a go at sexual exploration, or so-called kind before we've tried out naughtiness. That we have missed out on a stage may unfortunately be unapparent for many years, but the way we function means that eventually the missing stage will force itself to be heard, perhaps at the cost of seriously upending our lives. We can state a general principle of psychological life. No stage that's been missed out will ever easily leave us alone until it's been registered, honoured, sampled, and exhausted. If we strive to suppress it, it will buckle and torment our psyches and bodies until we recognise what's happened and take steps to correct the deficit. The idea of missing stages explains the phenomenon of the otherwise responsible lawyer who, at 42, suddenly leaves their family and young children in order to join a commune, or who infuriates their bosses and makes a bizarre mistake that gets them fired, or the octogenarian who divorces their spouse because they realise they were never held and simply allowed to be, or the 67-year-old who, over the course of a few months, takes to drink and shouts late at night in the garden to vent an aggression and energy that they were never granted license to indulge in their family of birth. We sometimes say, generally half in jest, that we might love to go back and be a baby for an afternoon. The expression is telling. There are parts of us that continually ache to sample what we never had enough of. The best thing to do with a missing stage is, first and foremost, to recognize that it is missing, and then to find the least dangerous and most effective way of sampling it, even as we try not to ruin or spoil the accomplishments of later stages of our lives. We may have to find a way to explain to a long-suffering spouse or friend or colleague that we missed out on the adored stage, the naughty stage, or the sexually exploratory stage. It may not be easy for anyone. What this ultimately tells us is that we should never be rushed into maturity. Whenever we see a child or teenager and hear them described as old for their years or already so grown up, we should worry. And if this happened to be us, we should mourn. The world would be a lot calmer if all of its outwardly adult and yet inwardly bawling, unhappy babies and furious toddlers had been given a chance to be who they needed to be at the age when it was safest and easiest for them to be so.
Wanting to get your iron levels higher, then it doesn't actually have to do with consuming more iron. I know it sounds crazy and you're wondering, how does this work? I'm about to explain it to you. This is one of the biggest things that I work with my clients, and I see huge transformations from it because we're actually solving what the body is imbalanced with, and that is from iron not moving. So low iron or anemia is actually a vitamin A deficiency, and we know that from a study from 1978 with Hodges and his colleagues, where he looked at depleting people's vitamin A levels to make their hemoglobins drop. Now, what he found was that after a 6-week period of people taking iron supplements, their hemoglobins came up a little bit, but then they dropped right back down to where they were before. It gave an artificial spike because it was making the red blood cells produce at a higher rate, but it wasn't actually solving what the imbalance was in the first place. It was just adding more stress to the body. Then they gave them vitamin A in the form of retinol, and guess what? Their levels of hemoglobin went back up. There was an 80% correlation between vitamin A supplementation and their hemoglobin. So part of the issue is this narrative that we have to be consuming more iron, and that's just, it's not true. We only need 1 milligram of iron a day. 24 milligrams of iron is recycled in the body a day. So if you go back and you watch any of my previous videos, I talk about the fact that we need to be focusing on the movement of iron. This includes the body recycling iron, and that is huge so that iron is moving. It can actually be 10 times higher in our organs than it is in our blood. And we do not want that. We want iron to be moving through the body. We don't want it stuck, because that's when issues begin to happen. Vitamin A in the form of retinol in particular is critical for the movement of iron. I know that people who are vegan or vegetarian are going to ask me what the alternatives are, but I am just explaining how the body works, and there is no alternative from vitamin A in the form of retinol that comes from an animal source. So if you're struggling with low iron and you're trying to figure out ways to increase it, the issue is not coming down to having more supplements that have iron in them, or having prenatals or multivitamins, or adding that little fish to your water. That's not what it's all about. You actually need to focus on the iron that's already within you, because it's already there. I know it is. So vitamin A in the form of retinol we can get from a bunch of different sources. It comes, like I said, from animal sources. So if you are eating things like lard and tallow, if you are eating eggs, things like butter, especially if you're following Weston A. Price Foundation, they harp on how amazing butter is. It's really amazing. If you're looking for a supplement, that's why beef liver can be great. That's why cod liver oil can be great. If you go to my links on my page, I have a whole list of different ones that I like. I'm very particular about the ones that I like. So if you could go to my links, you'll find them there. So the key to helping low iron levels is actually focusing on the movement of iron instead. Has anybody ever told you that?
Massive debris flow pours into Nahalach River. This is crazy. My God. And then another tree, another tree, another tree. Oh my God. Thousands of trees from the river. Oh my God. 15 minutes later, you couldn't understand what was going on. Man, All this material is coming down from the river. How?